Welcome to Hanging on the Moon with myself and Chris Walder. Here we are for another week. Chris Walder, how are you?
I'm peaches and cream, buddy. It's super hot in my bedroom right now, and I am sweating bullets. I'm trying to make weight for the podcast tomorrow. I'm on the brink. I'm almost there, but I still need a few more poundage to come off the old flaps on the side here.
Wow, that was way more information than we needed.
That's what we do here on the podcast. We just
I
there's no such thing as TMI.
I do have exciting news though.
What is your news?
If we have indeed an audience for this broadcast here, we do have the questions up on the Google Hangout. We have 2 weeks of failure, but now it is actually here. We have a podcast going with question and answers, and of course, this will be the week that no one tunes in to watch. They'll watch after we have, had the show and all of that. So, but they're there. So if people want to participate and interrupt us, by all means, we want to hear
Progress
from
is
you.
a slow process. 2 weeks later, we have it working. It only took 2 weeks though. It could have easily gone a lot longer than that, knowing how we handle Google Hangouts and whatnot.
Well, it's been a rough start. We won't lie. Our podcast is going much better though. We do that fairly efficiently after about 20 attempts at that. I think we've got that down.
20 times the charm.
Yeah. Speaking of our podcast, one of the reasons why we created this very program was to preview said podcast tomorrow. And not news for tomorrow's podcast, but a week from now, one of our guests will be returning. He's got a big match coming up in Ring of Honor, and maybe we'll start with Ring of Honor first of all, with a few notes from there. Kevin Steen wrapped up his time with Ring of Honor this past weekend, and once again, Kevin not saying where he's going, what he's doing. He did a show in your neck of the woods in Toronto for Smash Wrestling, in which he said he has in fact taken a new job and he is going to be training whales at Marineland. Somehow I do not believe that. That said, Kevin Steen, according to the rumor mill, is expected to be reporting to NXT sometime between August 1st and September 1st. Somewhere in that window, Kevin Steen is supposed to be signed, sealed, and delivered, and officially Prince Devitt signed this week. We'll get into that in a sec. But just finishing up with ROH, their next big show, Field of Honor, they've started to reveal a couple of the matches, and that leads to our guest who is going to be on the podcast, not this week, but next week. Matt Taven will be returning. He has a very big match on the Field of Honor show. He will be taking on Jay Lethal in a steel cage match for the ROH Television World Title, which screams to me this is the last opportunity for Matt Taven to regain his television title. So that match has been set. Also, a crazy four-way match for the ROH World Title between Michael Elgin, former champion Adam Cole, of course, the IWGP champion AJ Styles, who's going to be on the show, and Jay Briscoe. I'm not sure if I like the whole four-way. We just saw that in WWE. We always give credit to ROH for not copying the WWE. Here's a case where they kind of are copying the WWE, aren't they?
It's a four-way match, man. I think we're looking too much into it, you know? Four guys. I mean, is anyone really going to complain? You have Elgin, Cole, Styles, and Briscoe. I mean, no one's going to be like, well, Battleground, they just had Reigns and Orton and Cena and Kane. Man, they're just ripping them off cold.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's kind of. I just think it's unnecessary. I think we could have still had like a singles match, maybe have a rematch between Cole and Elgin, and then just put AJ Styles with Jay Briscoe. I think you're going to draw the same. I don't think the fact that all four of those guys are in the same match is going to draw more fans than the two matches I just suggested.
I don't think it's a big deal, man. The only reason I would complain is if Michael Elgin starts pandering hustle, loyalty, and respect. If that happens, then we could start complaining about there being a copycat here.
Wow. Well, he's already changed his hairstyle. I don't think Michael Elgin can make any more changes
If he
for a
starts
while.
wearing the wristbands and the armbands, the jean shorts.
Wow. I'm just picturing Michael Elgin as John Cena, and that's just not a good look. If we ever get him on the program, I want you to bring this up to him and see what he has to say. That's all I'm gonna say. In fact, that's one thing we're gonna try and do. I don't know how successful we'll be, but maybe so you can be included in on the interviews sometimes.
Yeah,
Maybe
that'd be
once in a
great.
while we'll get one of these hangout things going and get a guest. I know, not with Matt Taven, but with someone else. I've suggested doing that very thing. So we'll see uh, as we go along. That's something we're looking to. Where this could actually have some interviews on at this show as well. So we'll see how it goes. We are in the infancy stages with all of this, and we're trying to see how it all works. Anyway, that was pretty much it for ROH this week. Kevin Steen out the door. He has one last date to do. He'll be at PWG this Saturday, and he was on Mike and Maria's podcast last night, and it was very funny. So go check that out because I love Mike and Maria's podcast. As we've said many times on our podcast, probably the first time I said it on the video show, but Mike and Maria's podcast is one of my favorite things to do on a Wednesday night.
Two people that we would certainly love to have on the podcast, whether it be the video or audio one, Mike and Maria. Hit us up, Condo on the Moon.
Well, we've already had Mike on.
Well, Mike, but we can have both of them on at the same time, is what I'm saying.
We might. That might happen. Their wedding is coming up soon, so I want to see if Mike is coping and handling that all right, because he did miss the show, the final show for Kevin Steen, unfortunately, because he had food poisoning. So he was supposed to get a shot at the ROH World Title, and food poisoning beat him, not Michael Elgin.
See, these illnesses happen. And just for the record, before we started this podcast, we were talking about Sheamus came up and why he wasn't actually on Monday Night Raw this past week. And I said, well, he has a case of the flu. And then James just started bursting into laughter because he thought that was just downright hilarious.
Yes!
These things happen.
Wait a second. You're comparing food poisoning to the flu. Hold on. As someone who has had food poisoning and had the flu, let me tell you, they are nothing alike. And the fact that you have the flu as opposed to food poisoning, that's not in the same league. And are you here to tell me that if Zack Ryder called in Monday Night Raw, hey look, Triple H, guess what? I got the flu. I can't make it in tonight. Zack Ryder's not getting future endeavored on Friday? Are you telling me that? Because I'm thinking Sheamus, has a little more stroke than Zack Ryder.
First of all, Zack Ryder ain't getting booked in the first place, so let's not pretend that this is the same thing. He was, yes.
Wait a second.
But you know what? If he got fired after that Raw, where he got smooched by Summer Rae and Layla, you know what? He can retire from wrestling a happy man. That was probably the highlight of his career over the last 3 years.
No, but you're missing the point of all this. What I'm saying is if a lower card guy called in with the flu and said he couldn't make it to Raw, compared to Sheamus, what do you think is going to happen to the lower card guy? I'm thinking the severity of what happens to him might be a little different.
Well, let's just wait and see if Ryder keeps getting booked before we talk about if there's going to be any repercussions.
I just used Ryder as an example. You can
no, I know it's a bad example though because Ryder doesn't get booked.
You can take any lower card guy. Pick a guy, Chris Wilder, that is on the lower card of the WWE.
If Ryder shows up to work, they have to pay him, even if they don't book him to compete. Now, if Ryder says he has the flu, Vince McMahon's probably sitting back and saying, well, that's one less paycheck I have to hand out at the end of the week.
He'd still get paid if he was sick, wouldn't he?
I have no idea.
Sheamus is getting paid. I'll tell you that much.
That's a bigger loss. He's the United States champion right now. You would want him on television.
That title's been protected so well.
He's arguably one of the 5 biggest faces in the company right now.
Really?
Name 4 faces bigger than Sheamus, besides
Okay.
Johnson that are active. Don't count Daniel Bryan.
I'm not counting Daniel Bryan. We
Okay,
have
I'm just making
John Cena. You mentioned him, obviously.
right.
You've got all 3 members of the Shield. There, I'm done.
They're not faces. Okay, Reigns and Ambrose. That's 3.
Well, oh no, you said faces like
I
in
said face
terms
like
of
good
good
guys.
guys.
Yeah, Rollins isn't a face.
Okay, I missed. I just thought you meant like 4 guys.
No, I mean good guy. Well, I could
Okay,
think of
well
10
there's
guys more
three
important than
anyway.
Sheamus.
There's 3 anyway, and who would be my 4th one? Um, hmm,
See?
might be 4th, but still.
Still a top. Then that's a top 5 face. Then top 4 face.
Okay,
You
but
want him on your show. You can't have Ambrose and Reigns and Cena on every segment, although Vince would probably
wait a
love for that
second.
to
We
happen.
had a Raw without John Cena, who is the #1 face, and I didn't miss him at all.
It's because we had a certain appearance at the end of Raw that made up for it, plus a lot of other significant events that made you forget about that.
Yeah, it was actually an eventful Raw without John Cena, and one of the highest rated Raws in like the last 2 months. So what does that say about the company boy John Cena?
It was post pay-per-view, and it's on the road to
A pay-per-view
SummerSlam.
that no one cared about.
It's the first Raw that leads to SummerSlam, and people wanted to know who's fighting Cena for the belt, and a lot of people thought Brock Lesnar was going to be on the show, so that helps the
And that
ratings.
there it is. That's why everyone tuned in. That was the only reason why everyone tuned in. They thought Brock Lesnar was going to be on the show. And I mean, if you were paying attention during the day, you knew Brock Lesnar was going to be on the show.
Exactly.
So Brock Lesnar ratings draw John Cena. Maybe not. In fact, let's keep on the John Cena train. How much stock do you put in this whole story that John Cena can become a big movie star now? He's gonna be like The Rock, and he's gonna leave and be a total hypocrite because of all the things he said about The Rock. Not that I'm discouraging him from doing this. I encourage this. John Cena, you're a fine actor. You were great in The Marine. You were great in everything you've done. I think you could take Hollywood by storm. Please leave.
You just want him gone. You don't believe a word of what you just said.
Obviously, Chris
But
Paul.
here's the thing. Cena ain't going nowhere. He's a lifer. He might go off and do a couple of movie appearances here and there like he is right now. He's doing Trainwreck, I believe, which is like a new Judd Apatow film. But
Trainwreck. That's appropriate. For
yeah, there's a joke in there somewhere, obviously. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's going to be working for the WWE as long as he wants to. Frankly, if he wants to be backstage in management once he's done as an in-ring competitor, which might not be that far off, because I mean I don't know how much longer he really does want to be like a month-to-month guy wrestling, because there's nothing really else for him to accomplish unless he just kind of wants to break Flair's record, which he's on the brink of doing, or at least tying it, and then just walking off into the sunset, handing off the torch to someone else like a Roman Reigns, and see if they can carry the ball for the next 5 to 10 years. But yeah, I don't. All of these reports about him becoming a full-fledged movie star and pulling a Dwayne Johnson and getting into that area of entertainment, I don't believe it for a second.
I encourage it. I demand it. In fact, I think John Cena, you owe it to yourself to see if you can make it in Hollywood. I
Man,
think you really do.
you're praying for some sort of like injury at SummerSlam when he fights Lesnar. Like Lesnar just turns into goes into UFC mode, puts him
That
in
could
Kimura and
happen.
breaks his arm.
Let's make no mistake about it. They're joking around about it in storyline or like teasing it in storyline, but that could happen. That's a legitimate possibility with Brock Lesnar. I mean, he is someone who can hurt not only the people he's in the ring with, but himself. So John Cena definitely is a marked man, so to speak, going into this match. I think there's no question about that. But no, in all honesty, yeah, do I want to see him go? Absolutely. I
The
think
qu-
he.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to make a quick note. Earlier this morning I read this article from Grantland. It was talking about wrestling, which they have a guy who does that. and he wrote about Paul Heyman, and he alluded to the promo he cut at the end of Monday
We're
Night
talking
Raw.
about David Shoemaker, by the way.
It was David Shoemaker. Is that what his name
Should
is?
be. If it was Grantland, I'm pretty sure that's who it would have
It
been.
might
But
have
go
been,
ahead.
yeah. I think he goes by like a mass name or something.
Yes, the masked man.
Yeah, that guy. But yeah, he alluded to the promo that Paul Heyman cut at the end of Raw, which is something we rarely see, an episode of Raw ending with the promo. And Paul Heyman is always brilliant on the microphone. He sells the match with John Cena at SummerSlam. He made point, I think the title of the article was something along the lines of Paul Heyman being the biggest star in WWE at the moment. What do you think about that?
He might be the best promo in WWE at the moment. I don't know if he's the biggest star. I don't think, like, you get into that gray area because then you get into this conversation, who's the biggest heel right now in WWE? I would argue it's Stephanie. Can we have
Yeah.
a match with Stephanie? Well, we are going to at SummerSlam with Brie Bella, but generally speaking, we can't. John Cena's not having a match with Stephanie. None of your top baby faces are having a match with Stephanie. But could you argue she's the top heel in this company? I think absolutely right now she is.
And I already have the groundwork laid out for that match, by the way. I know exactly how it's going to end. The segment last Monday Night on Raw was absolutely hilarious, where they arrested Stephanie McMahon. I love how they didn't do any of it on the microphone. They had the cops approach her, and no one in the arena kind of knew what was happening until they put the cuffs on her, and they got into like a little bit of a verbal war there. But yeah, at SummerSlam, this is just like a quick prediction for that match. If Brie Bella and Stephanie McMahon fight, I think Stephanie's just going to say, you know what, I want to get my hands on that BITCH. I'll give her job back. We'll get into the ring at SummerSlam. And I'm foreseeing a Nikki Bella heel turn, her turning on her sister, costing Brie the match, and then we kind of go into a Bella versus Bella program for the next few months.
But then what does John Cena do? Because he's dating the evil Bella.
What does that have to do with anything? Cena's occupied with Lesnar. You think he cares if his girlfriend is getting into? I mean, we don't see Daniel Bryan.
Well, no, we don't see Daniel Bryan, but I think we're going to see him at SummerSlam, don't you?
I don't think so.
I think he's going to be in his wife's corner. What kind of a man?
Then who's in Stephanie's corner? It's not Hunter.
Well, no, he'll be other. What? I think we're going to start to see some dissension between those two now because
Hunter and Stephanie?
Yeah, because they made a big deal about how Hunter could have gone to the jail sooner than he did, and they wrote that kind of fake newsy story on the WWE.com that Hunter didn't arrive at the jail till like 1 o'clock in the morning, and Stephanie didn't get bailed out till 4. I'm thinking Stephanie is not going to be happy with her husband as well, on top of all of this.
I don't think that's going to be any dissension, and they're just going to use the whole shtick of it being best for business that Triple H stuck around. He found an opponent for Cena at SummerSlam. That's taken care of. I mean, it's probably going to be water under the bridge. We might not even get any sort of note about that come Raw.
I don't think so, because if that's the case, why would you put it on WWE.com and make such a big deal of it on the show?
I don't know, man. It's such a silly storyline. I have no idea where it's going. I mean, Hunter was basically cracking up back when he was like approaching the car. He's like, "Oh, is this like your car or whatever? You drive like I forget what the cops were driving. It was like some sort of garbage car." But,
no, it was like a eco-friendly car, like
one of those cars. Oh, you drive this bad boy?
Hybrid. That's the
yeah,
one
hybrid. And the promo that Hunter cut at the start of Raw about what was it? He mentioned like
the
Mark.
internet. I thought it was. I thought it was hilarious.
He was about to crack. He was about to start like dying laughing. It looked. His mouth started shivering, like he was just like holding in the giggles.
Oh no, he loves that promo. That is like Triple H for real.
Troll.
Yes,
it was good stuff.
He trolls the internet well. I just want to know who this friend Mark is. Is that the Undertaker?
Yeah, I never thought of that. No, it's just Mark. Fans Marks. It writes itself. There's no.
Well, yeah,
some guy at home is like, I'm the Mark.
But you know, Mick Foley has stated he would flip out if the Undertaker, Mark Calloway, everyone on Twitter. So
that's why he'll return and he'll just be known as Mark Calloway, and he'll drop the whole dead man gimmick. Brock Lesnar put that to rest, and he got such a severe concussion. He totally forgot his gimmick. He'll come to work as himself, and that'll be how the Undertaker finishes his career. We'll get Mark Calloway versus Steve Borden at WrestleMania
On
31,
NXT, Arrival, or
or
whatever.
Borden Steven, whatever NXT wants to name him.
That'll be on the next big NXT show.
Exactly.
Your
Who are these
undercard
two
will
newcomers?
your undercard will be Kenta and Prince Devitt taking on Sami Zayn and Kevin Wyatt. It'll be good stuff.
Steno Brevin, or whatever. I don't
No,
know.
I tried to do the reverse name thing with Steen. I don't think it's gonna work.
But that's another thing, though. Like when he was doing these final ROH and independent things, and I know how he was trolling the fans and saying, "Well, I'm going to become like a whale tamer or whatever." And but you know what? The last trainer, working with whales. I
Yes.
remember the last couple of guys who left ROH and had like a big public thing of how, you know what, we're going to WWE, we're going to become bigger stars. I automatically think of CM Punk. I automatically think of Tyler Black when he was down there and they had like the whole contract thing and how he was going to leave with the belt and whatnot. I think it's great that Steen didn't mention WWE at once. We're all pretty much aware that he's going to NXT and going to be working in developmental for a while. Why put any unnecessary heat on yourself? Because you know there's going to be like those smart fans who think, you know what, he's going to WWE, he's turning his back on us. Just keep your mouth shut, let them think what they want, and go out on your own terms.
Kevin's a very humble guy. Like, I mean, he even said that he felt awkward that he and Steve Corino were the final match on the show in Dearborn, Michigan, which I thought was hilarious because, I mean, they would have had a minor riot if that was not the main event of that show.
Yeah.
As it turned out, their main event of that show ended up screwed up anyway because Michael Bennett had food poisoning and couldn't face Michael Elgin for the world title, which I assume would be the main event if it's not Kevin Steen and Carino. But that's just the kind of guy Kevin Steen is. If you watch his stuff, if you watch Weekend Escapades, if you see any of the few interviews that he's done, he's forever putting over other people and not himself. I mean, this is what this guy does, and that's why I think so many people are legitimately rooting for him to have tremendous success uh, in WWE, and that's why for our podcast last week, I did a little tribute to Kevin off the top with all our guests saying just wonderfully nice things as Chris Walder moves his little microphone slash globe. Wonderful. If you want camera time, tap once. Great. Anyway, so he does it. But the whole thing, we did a little tribute with Mike Bennett, Adam Cole, and Court Bauer, and some of the nice things they had to say about Kevin off the top for our podcast last week. I threw that in as a little surprise for everybody off the top. And, Kevin's just a great guy, and we wish him nothing but success. And obviously, the success Sami Zayn has had bodes well for Kevin because these two guys have come up together and really have fought all the same places, worked all the same places, done all the same things, even though they're vastly different in body type. They're not in talent.
Yeah, I mean we've talked about this before on the podcast. Kevin Steen kind of reminds us of a Bray Wyatt, someone who doesn't have the typical WWE physique, but he's so talented in other aspects, like his in-ring work, like his promo work, that the company will find something for him to do. And that's why I don't really have any worries about Kevin Steen. We've seen some guys come up that have storied backgrounds. I mean, one of the top ones that comes to mind is Sin Cara, and that thing was just completely ruined from the get-go. Not only because Sin Cara was a botch waiting to happen, but it's just the gimmick never really got over in the first place. But with Kevin Steen, my worries are few and far between. I think he'll be great.
And you actually kind of touched on something that I think we should get into as a topic, which is race in the WWE seems to be a big deal. There was an article a couple weeks back chastising them for not having a black champion, so to speak, and not just that, not having blacks behind the scenes in positions in the company. And the WWE responds with what we saw Monday with Xavier Woods. I find that all too uh, A and B. I mean, we're bringing back the Nation of Domination now. You want black people to look strong? Here you go. Here's the new Nation of Domination. Really?
Well, it doesn't look like it's only going to be Big E and Kofi Kingston. We reported at WrestlingRumors.net, another site I write for those of you who follow the podcast. Looks like Mark Henry's going to be returning. He's actually been, on his Twitter account, if you've noticed, he's actually been tweeting some stuff about racism in professional wrestling, and I think that's kind of like a precursor to what's going to happen now. You're going to see the world's strongest man align himself with Big E, with Kofi Kingston, who, I mean, we can all just assume that this group is going to be heel. They haven't really taken that turn yet, but it looks like it's going to steer down that path. I think this is great for a guy like Kofi, who's been just, staying like this for the better part of like 3 years, and I think he needs something to elevate him a little bit. Maybe a heel turn is what could do the trick. Big E falls under the same category, a lot of talent, but it's just WWE doesn't really know what to do with him at this point. Xavier Woods, you don't really want to see him in the ring. He's great on the mic. He's a very articulate young man, very intelligent. I like that role for him. And, maybe we'll see a guy like Titus O'Neil. I mean, it pains me to say it just because I feel like I'm just naming African-American wrestlers in the company right now, and if they can fit into that group. But, it's like that seems to where they're going, though, don't you think?
For this gimmick to work, though, you need one to stay the babyface because these are going to be black militants. They're not going to be the good guys. I mean,
right.
That's clear, and that's maybe part of the problem. And maybe the only reason I'm not bashing this 100% is because of the fact that I think it does help some people, like you said. First and foremost, Kofi Kingston, who has been dying to play a heel role for a long time now. And he's finally getting a chance to do that. And on that alone, I'm kind of hoping this works. But it seems all too reactionary to me on the WWE's behalf. And even to the point, when this story came out, they did a special on, I believe it was on the Huffington Post or something like that. And who was the guy they sent to do it? Mark Henry. And now you're putting him in this angle with the Nation of Domination too. I get why he's there from a wrestling point of view. He was in the original. It's kind of a nod back to that and all of that. But if that's the case, why are you sending him out there to do your press when you're talking about this as a legitimate issue in society? It doesn't make sense. It's kind of backwards. It's kind of screwed up. And then to take this story even further, we talk about the WWE. Kenta's coming in, and their lack of success at getting over Asians is legendary in this company. Other than Tajiri, has there been an Asian that has had any form of success? Yokozuna doesn't count because he wasn't actually an Asian.
Yeah.
So the answer is kind of no.
Unless you count like Kenzo Suzuki when he was like tag team champion on the SmackDown. He was a tag team champion. He was over for a little bit with he was teamed with Rene Dupree. He had some great matches with the Rob Van Dam and Mysterio. But other than that, I honestly can't think of anybody.
Yeah, I mean, Tajiri, I would argue Tajiri was doing better than that.
Right. I just think the problem with Asian superstars is that WWE always tries to stereotype them, which I think is wrong. I think you just have to let these guys be who they are. And it appears that that's what they're going to be doing with Kenta. I don't think they're changing his name. I think there's been reports that Triple H really wants to get some of the New Japan footage over for the WWE Network, and I think by building up Kenta and keeping him the same and having that fan base jump over with him to WWE, just let him do his thing. I mean, we've seen me and you have probably seen most of his matches when he was in Ring of Honor. I mean, his feuds with Daniel Bryan, his matches. I mean, why wouldn't you just want him to be that guy?
Yeah, it's weird. And I mean, you get into Mexicans, we've had the same kind of stereotypical gimmicks for a lot of people. I mean, we all remember fondly the men on their riding lawnmowers, Hoovy and crew. Really, since Eddie Guerrero, we haven't had a legitimate Latino star. And then
Del Rio.
Well, yeah, I guess so. There is Del Rio, but he was a star. He was made a star. He wasn't. The people never treated him like that.
He was a WWE and World Heavyweight Champion. That's what people are
Yeah.
going to remember.
Well, no, but like I mean, he was never. That was something that was kind of handed to him. I think more than it was earned. No
I don't
offense,
know,
but
man. He main evented. He was in one of the title matches at a WrestleMania. He won the biggest Royal Rumble match ever. I think we need to give him at least some credit. I don't think it wasn't just all WWE giving it to him. The talent was obviously there.
the point is though, and we're getting sidetracked on individuals. But the point is,
Right.
the WWE's record when it comes to race is not all that good. And then we haven't even talked behind the scenes. Who are the people that make those decisions? There's not a dark face among them. I mean, there really isn't. Look at all the agents. They're all white guys. I mean, look at all the people who are the front office people. There really is no sense of color. And from what I've heard on the writing team, it's no different. There's not a lot of color or diversity there either. So, I mean, it makes sense why they're not good at this because they don't have any people behind the scenes that know how to make this work.
Do you think that's an underlying problem though? Because I mean, even in the regular day life, I always feel that you know what, it's important to have kind of a mix of race and ethnicity because that's always a big deal. But at the same time, it's like, all right, why don't you just hire the people that are best for the job, and if they happen to be a certain color, so be it. I don't know if the WWE has like some sort of like a racist mentality. We don't hire African
No, I
American
don't think
workers
it's
or
a
whatnot.
racist mentality. I do think it's totally not malicious, their intent. I just
Exactly.
think they don't know any better.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I understand in that
I,
sense.
I
I mean,
cut out, I took out your win there, Chris Walder. I'm sorry, but I just
no, no,
I
no, it's
wanted to
fine.
clarify that.
I was actually just trying to think of some like I mean, just African American superstars on the roster and like who's really been up there near the upper echelon. And the last guy that I mean, we had Mark Henry. He had his thing with John Cena for the title, but that only lasted like a month and a half. Other than that, I think of guys like the Kingstons and the Big E's, and Shelton Benjamin was he when he was like floating in the mid card. Other than that, it's like
Well,
not really a really strong history.
there's always The Rock, of course, too.
Yeah, but he's not African
But
American. He's
he
Samoan.
is. He's half African American, but
Yeah, but they endorse the fact that he's
as
Samoan.
Samoan. And here we go. We have we have history here, Walter. We have our first question from the audience. So here we go.
Whoa.
Here's our question: is it better to have Reigns take on Triple H at SummerSlam or Night of Champions? I just don't get having a major grudge match on a championship themed show. That comes from Joshua Lopez. Thank you for the question, Joshua. And I think the answer to his question equals WWE Network because that's what this is going to be about, right? The only reason I think we're not getting Triple H and Roman Reigns at SummerSlam is because they want to have things for people to renew their network subscription for. Roman Reigns versus Triple H is the match they feel that can do that, and that's why it's going to be on Night of Champions.
Yeah, I 100% agree. After Raw, especially, we're definitely getting Roman Reigns versus Randy Orton at SummerSlam, and then odds are we are going to get the Triple H match that we've all been dying to see at Night of Champions. And like you said, that's going to be around the time when the subscriptions end for all the WWE Network users, and they want to entice fans to, you know what, these are the kind of cards we're going to put out in the future. This is going to be the first one where you can, renew your subscription and put down the $10 a month and so on. And besides, at a pay-per-view like Night of Champions, even if every title is defended, which is probably going to happen, that's not enough to fill out a card. You need something else to sell that pay-per-view, and Reigns versus Triple H is the perfect match to do so.
And there you have it. Thank you, Joshua. And Josh or anyone else wants to ask any more questions, feel free. We'll interrupt whatever we're talking about and address your questions because you, the people, are what's important, at least on this show on Thursday. Friday, it's all about us, Walter. It really is.
We're selfish pigs in that regard.
No, but with the podcast, it's a little harder. It's a lot easier to interact here with the video show on Thursdays, so we try and make that possible. Although the first 2 weeks we failed at that miserably, I will take all of the blame for that because Google Hangout was just not cooperating well with me.
Yeah, let's blame Google. It's
Yeah,
all their fault.
well, the Google Hangout has a reputation of taking a lot of blame from people for a lot of things, and
Right. I'm
most of
surprised
it
I haven't been logged
involves
off yet.
Twitter.
Last week when we did this, I was logged off a couple of times.
Yeah, a couple times you were causing trouble, apparently swearing, or the aliens were trying to stop you from being on the broadcast.
It was Alicia
Uh,
Fox.
well, yeah, could be. Alicia Fox, if you're out there and have a question for Chris Walter.
She drenched my MacBook in Sunny Delight and Orange Crush. All the sodas you can think of, she just poured it all over my desk.
Wow, that's great. Good for her. Anyway, speaking of that, we had a major heel turn. Finally, Chris Walden. Finally, Paige is a heel. I was at my breaking point when it finally happened, and I was like, good. I couldn't have taken any more of this frenemies BS. Thank God. Now we have our proper feud. We have our babyface AJ, we have our heel Paige, and I think this is exactly what Paige should have been doing from day one. I thought she did a tremendous job. She was vicious with her offense, and the fact she skipped away like AJ, I thought was the cherry on the Sunday. I thought brilliant work by her. We're obviously going to get another match between these two. I have no problem with that. These are probably the only two girls in this company that can both work and tell a compelling story as well that I would believe at this point. I think Natalia has some of those things. I think Charlotte Flair eventually will have some of those things.
I
But
wouldn't
as
sell
far
Brie Bella short either. She can go.
this thing with
She's
her,
gotten a lot better.
this thing with her and Stephanie works. People want to see it. You know what? I'm not going to give her a lot of credit. I think Stephanie is pulling the load on this. If this is Brie Bella with anyone else, I'm not buying it as much as I am. This is Stephanie carrying the load.
Are you telling me that Natalia can carry a storyline?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that
She's a great worker, but
that's what I'm saying. Of the choices we have, these are the two girls I'm most confident that can have both a great match and tell a great story in AJ and Paige. And that's with Paige being really brutal on the mic still.
yeah, she has a long ways to go. I disagree with you in the sense that this is what she should have been doing from the get-go. I think WWE was aware that AJ was going to be taking time off. If you lose someone like AJ, you need someone to step in who can kind of carry the load. And considering there wasn't really a face who could step in, AJ was kind of being booked as a face. Even though she was a heel, she was booked as a face against all of the Total Divas and whatnot at WrestleMania. But you needed Paige to come in as a face, kind of establish her brand, establish herself to the fans. Didn't go over so well. But now that AJ is back, you can kind of work off the fact that fans are excited that she's back. You know, Mrs. CM Punk. You have Paige turn, which she did on Monday Night Raw. Some of the best stuff she did in NXT was when she was a heel. So I can't wait to see the way this plays out. SummerSlam, we're obviously going to get a rematch. And on Twitter during Raw, I was almost kind of comparing this to, you know, a new era. If it's done correctly, a new Trish versus Lita feud. Obviously, can get a lot of matches out of these two. People are buying into the fact that, you know, they have similar personalities, they have similar movesets, but you can't really get sick of them competing, although their match at Battleground wasn't that great.
No, but I think now, and why I say that Paige should have been this way all along, from an in-ring standpoint, her moveset is totally different now as a heel, and it works. I think it's just absolutely what she was supposed to be doing from the get-go. I mean, she's a vicious girl. and she knows how to throw down. I mean, this is a girl who's wrestled since what, 15 years old, something like that. I mean, it's an insanely young age that she started wrestling from. I think it just suits her, the heel role. I've always seen her as a heel, even though they've been booking her as a babyface.
I marked out a little bit during the tag team match on Raw because I think that was the first time we've seen Paige and Emma in the same ring at the same time on a live television event, which I thought was really cool. I loved some of their matches on NXT and thought it was a matter of time until they faced each other. But Emma needs to keep her hands to herself and stop stealing iPad cases, and maybe she'll get a push and be challenging for the Divas Championship one day and stop doing this bloody thing too.
I don't know. She's on a timeout right now. We'll see what
That's why
happens
she
to
steals
her.
so much, because her hands are all over the place. She's just grabbing things like that. That's her stealing move, James.
Chris Walder, I don't know what to make of you. I really don't.
The Divas
Uh,
love me. The Divas love me.
and Josh is weighing in. He says that at some point Naomi should be added into this mix. That would be great, except they went and beat her with Cameron, which was awful. And yes, Chris Walder, go ahead and brag about making a terrible pick come true at Battleground.
If
You're
storylines didn't exist and there was no such thing as like backstage booking in a straight wrestling match, Naomi would have wiped the floor with her. But since this is sports entertainment and they kind of wanted to give Cameron some sort of traction, they gave her the victory. And you know what? I called it. You didn't believe me. I got it right. Bow down to Walder. Cameron all the way. I'm picking her until WrestleMania. She's on the same boat as the Usos.
Whoa, you may be heading for the same place that Emma's heading on a timeout with that attitude, mister.
Behind
I don't
bars.
know about that. No, not arrested. I just mean your role will diminish or something. We might have to put you on a timeout. Can we do
I
that?
actually switched. I actually
Google
switched my
Plus?
pick at WrestlingRumors.net. We do staff picks, and I actually switched my pick to Naomi during the day. But at the very last second, while I could, I switched it back to Cameron because I was like, you know what? They're gonna just troll everyone. And besides, we also had an opening match on the YouTube pre-show with Adam Rose and what was it, Fandango. So I
It
was like,
was
okay.
the Dango.
So I was like, okay, you can afford to have one heel win and one heel lose. So I figured Adam Rose was going to win, the heel could win, and the Naomi match, Cameron emerges victorious in one of the most botched. And that's we haven't really touched on Battleground because this is happening after the fact. But my God, was that pay-per-view just flooded with botched moves?
It was just useless.
Sloppy wrestling. It was just not good. There was maybe one match that was just clean.
It was a useless pay-per-view, and you took away the match that everyone wanted to see away.
Yeah.
Like Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, they took that match away from people. I don't know why that they did that. I'm still baffled by that. But before you got to there, I wanted to just make mention of the Dango. What is wrong with the poor Dango? I mean, he is he lost to Adam Rose. He lost to Zack Ryder. Is he the bottom feeder of the main roster right now? Like, is there anyone lower?
Somewhere in the locker room, Chris Jericho has his hands on his head saying, I put this guy over at WrestleMania. You've got to be kidding me. Now, with Summer Rae and Layla, the only thing he's good for right now is being fodder to two divas who aren't really that relevant. They're nice to look at, but in the grand scheme of things in the Divas division, they're complete afterthoughts, and Fandango's just getting his butt spanked. Not literally. That's Zack Ryder's job now. But, yeah, Fandango is just, he's a talented guy. He has a great look. They just don't know what the hell they're doing with him. I think by the end of the year, I think you're going to see Johnny Curtis, which is his real name. I think this Fandango gimmick is going to get kicked to the curb. Unless they can come up with some other diva to pair with him who's like a real name, but I don't know who else you could really put with him. You need to get rid of the gimmick and let him just start fresh.
No, they just screwed up how they broke them up. He should have left them.
I
That's
know, but
what
I'm
should have
talking
happened.
about just the gimmick itself, I'm just so over it. It had a nice run when Fandangoing caught on after WrestleMania, but that didn't last more than a couple of months. Just can the gimmick. I want to see him as just like himself, because he could be
Joshua,
useful.
Joshua, who's watching the show, agrees with me. He thinks Johnny Curtis is better than Fandango. I think you're both crazy. Fandango isn't the problem. It's how they're booking the Dango that's the problem.
Why are we calling him that? The Dango.
Because I like it.
Is he an
I made a
Australian
nickname for him.
mammal?
Wait! The Dango and Emma! There
Oh
it
my
is.
They
That's
both
gold.
dance.
They
They
both
both.
dance.
The Dango stole your baby.
There's your catchphrase. We've done it. We've done it again, Chris Walder. We've saved the WWE. Well, I have actually.
What are we
It was
doing?
my idea. Why am I giving you credit for my idea?
'Cause
Anyway,
I'm not-
moving on from that. What else? Oh yes, CM Punk is never, ever, 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 ever,
Getting
ever
back
coming back.
together.
No, he's never, ever, 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 ever coming back.
You don't know Taylor Swift, man? Come on, you gotta step
I do
up your
not know
music game.
Taylor Swift. I do not. Music died, Chris Walder, pretty much around the time you were born. Anything that's come out after you were born is pretty much it. It's done.
You're just
Music
one big
is
Debbie
dead.
Downer today.
No, it's just on music. I mean, there's nothing.
All right, well, CM Punk, yeah, he's never coming back. Wow, we didn't see that coming.
Although,
Jeez. He looks good,
right
though.
after
He
it,
looks
he
good.
said he basically acted like he was trolling because then he said, "Wait till Twitter hears that. Oh, I'll bet you they'll hold me to that, and then I'll never be able to come back."
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I forget who it was. I don't know if it was Jericho or Austin on one of their podcasts, but they said that CM Punk should try and not burn his bridges with WWE because he could always come back and kind of have that Jericho role where he could do like a couple of matches over a couple of months span, make some decent money, be a big name because he's returning. People obviously want to see him work again. It's just a matter of when. But after seeing the footage of him, he did the interview with Chris Van Pelt in Cleveland, which we're talking about. He looks good. He looks healthy. He showed off his wedding ring, so anyone who doubted that he and AJ were married, just watch the video. But yeah, if he comes back, it's going to be a long time before he does. Although he was trolling the fans, never, ever, ever. There is some truth behind that.
and there's also talk the WWE might actually take legal action against CM Punk, which I don't know if they want to go down that road because right now I think fans are kind of 50-50. Some are mad at Punk, some are mad at the WWE. If the WWE goes after him, that dynamic shifts and Punk becomes something that he's very good at being, the victim. He becomes the sacrificial lamb that the WWE is going after, and really, he was banged up. He just wanted to go home. He wasn't getting the money that was promised to him. All of this is going to come up. If I'm the WWE, I cut my losses. If CM Punk wants to go work a match in ROH or New Japan or somewhere, so be it. It's not going to dent into their business. And I really don't think, there's any reason for them to make this any more ugly than it already is. And it appears to be very ugly from all that's being said behind the scenes, although no one. It seems like both sides don't want to be that first one to sling the mud.
I don't think there's a lot they can do anyway. He's not under contract. What exactly are you going to sue him for?
There is a claim that they're going to sue him for not filling his contractual obligations. Like when he walked out, they're
Don't
going to
waste your
claim
time.
damages and blah blah blah. And, I mean, it's the United States of America. You can sue for anything. There was that old lady that sued for the hot coffee from McDonald's. The guy that sued McDonald's because he got fat. There's lots of things. Like that happened, Chris Walter. There was a guy who sued McDonald's because he got fat because he did not know, according to him, that McDonald's would make him fat. That happened.
Oh my God, that is funny. That made my day right there. That's yeah. McDonald's made you chow down like 5 or 6 burgers a day just to. Well, you thought it was good for you. You thought it had lettuce in it. You were gonna shed
Hey,
some weight.
hey, I got news here on our question and answer. You know Van Velt, the guy who did the interview? He's a
Right.
Canadian like us, Walt.
He is Canadian. I didn't know that.
You did know that? I didn't.
Yep. I didn't think it was a big deal, but yeah, he's Canadian.
Well, I didn't know that, so there you go.
I knew something that James didn't know. Whoa. Mark it on the calendar.
It happens, you know. You should be nice to me, Chris Walder, because not in this line of work, but in another line of work, I'm trying to line you up a gig, and I do this out of the kindness of my heart. So,
I'm
you
nice,
know,
man. You're a big teddy bear. You're a nice guy. I always got your back.
I am because I'm looking out for you. I'm retiring from Raptors, and you're still there, so I'm trying to make you a little more successful.
Bless my heart. I'm still years later. I have
I
not
pledge allegiance
succumbed.
to James Borbath and all his. Oh no, that was Paul Heyman's
That
promo.
was Heyman's speech. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
little bit different than what you said, but it was pretty close.
Well, no, you could have done one for me, but apparently you don't care.
I'm Canadian. I don't know that whole shtick.
You got 24 hours, Chris Walder. Come up with something good for the podcast.
I have to learn the Pledge of Allegiance in 24 hours.
No, just something to me. I don't care if you use the Pledge of Allegiance.
James, you're so cool.
No, it's got to
I'm
be better
so-
than that. You've got roughly about 20 hours to come up with something. So work on it, Walter.
Yes.
Anything else this week that we want to talk about? We talked a little bit about Battleground. I think we'll save that for the podcast. We'll do our in-depth Battleground recap there. But newsy items. Anything else that grabs your fancy? As we've got about 8 minutes left in the program.
For the love of God, people who watch Monday Night Raw, and you'll eventually understand what I'm about to talk about. You're always looking for like that one split second that you can make a meme out of, you can take a photo of, it can go viral, fans will love it, tag it with the hashtag Raw or whatever. It's cool. That's what I do too. But seriously, if you see a woman fall out of her top for like a split second, a nipple, not even a full nipple, like half a nipple, and you're going to talk about like this being the greatest thing you've ever seen in your entire life, something only she's seen and John Cena's seen. It's a friggin' nipple.
I
Who gives a
have
damn?
a feeling Nikki Bella's been around more than just John Cena, but that's aside from your point.
I mean, recent. I mean, current events. I don't
Here's
think
what
anyone
I
else
will
is.
say. Here's what I will say. This really, for the people that don't like wrestling and aren't wrestling fans, this feeds into the stereotype that wrestling fans cannot get women and have never seen a woman and all of this. It is
Maybe that's
ridiculous.
maybe that's why
It
I'm
is.
different. I have a girlfriend, so I don't need
Wow,
to quick.
Walter, you're gonna get kicked out of the wrestling community for that.
I'm
You're
off,
allowed-
I'm off the market, man. Brie Bella, you got to stop calling me. You're a married woman. We can never be together.
Oh man.
I think my girlfriend knows this. Like Brie Bella is like my wrestling crush.
See, you made a serious point, and I was backing you up, and then you just kill it with that. I don't know what to make of it. Yeah, it's ridiculous though. Like, I mean, come on, people.
Yeah.
Like we live. Like, I am old enough to remember when there was not an internet full of like exposed breasts everywhere that you can find very easily. I don't know what the big deal is that we have a wrestler pop out of her top. I really don't. And I mean, even in wrestling, how many wrestling chicks have posed in Playboy? There's a ton of them, right?
Big E has the biggest tits on the roster, and he pulls down his straps every time he goes for his
Okay,
finishing move.
well,
But no
it's
one
wrong.
takes snapshots of that.
We've got in a very wrong place. I was with you, Walter, and then you've lost me.
Yeah, but that's what my timeline became when that happened. I have eyes like a hawk. I could see everything. I actually noticed it when it happened, and I saw the camera cut away, and I knew, you know what, in 5 minutes this is going to be on Twitter, and this thing is going to get like 1,000 retweets because there's so many guys out there who have never seen a nipple before in their entire life. They're going to put a red ring around it. They're going to highlight it. They're going to Photoshop it on their damn forehead. They want it to be everywhere. Get the hell over it. Go to Google.
What I find funny is Bree and Nikki now have nip slips on the record with the WWE.
That's true, yeah.
That is like
the Bellas have nothing to hide anymore.
The whole theory with twins is alive and well because they both now, within the span of maybe a year and a half, have done the same exact thing.
So what do we all have in common with John Cena? We've seen Nikki Bella's nip.
Well,
we may never be 15-time world champions. We may never endorse hustle, loyalty, and respect. We may never have a nicely designed fluorescent T-shirt that glows in the dark. But we have seen Nikki Bella's nipple slip out of her shirt for a split second. So we can all take that to the grave.
And John Cena, I encourage you, go join the movies. You can see nipples like that all the time. It'll be great. You can have a great life. Wrestling, you've done your time, John Cena. Do not feel obligated to us anymore. You can leave. It's okay. Roman Reigns is more than willing to take your spot. And we can move on. I mean, no harm, no foul, John Cena. Really. I mean, you've had some great hit movies. The Marine, 10 Rounds. What else was Cena in? Help me there. The point is,
you're the Cena expert.
Straight to DVD classics. I'm even gonna say this, and I'm a Triple H fan. You were better than Triple H in that movie with him and the little girl, and what was it called, Walter?
I'm not helping you with this. You've dug yourself your own grave. You can dig yourself out.
Fine. That movie.
You're a Triple H fan. He's done one movie. Girl. He's done one movie as a solo act, and you can't even. You're a Triple H fan, and you can't even name the movie.
No, he's not. He was in Blade 3.
I mean, as the lead role.
Well, I thought he was pretty good in Blade 3.
Yeah, because he didn't have to do much. 3. He had to show his fangs and beat up Wesley Snipes.
No, he did do 2 movies though, because he did them back to back. There was the one with the little girl where he goes on the field trip, which CM Punk mentioned in a promo too, and I'm blanking on it.
Oh, the Chaperone.
That's right. That's what I'm looking for. You were better than Triple H in the Chaperone, John Cena. And Josh was helping me out too and said the Chaperone, but you were better than him in the Chaperone. It's okay, John.
It was the CM Punk promo that made me remember. It's like, where's your DVD, Punk? Where's that? And he was like, oh, mine went straight to DVD.
Just like the Chaperone. And there we have it. CM Punk, we missed you. John Cena, we won't miss you. And we're almost out of time. What else can we say, Chris Walter? Tune in the podcast tomorrow, where we'll talk more about Battleground.
And nipples and all that good stuff.
Okay. So
if you want to hear us talk about nipples, be sure to tune in. How's that?
Sounds like an rated podcast. Oh, and by the way, Matt Taven, not this week but next week, going to be on the podcast too. So that's about it. We're about done here. Google Hangouts. We have had fun. And we actually got the question and answers to work this week, so that's very exciting.
Yeah, man, we're stepping up our game. We're getting technology in order. We got big interviews coming up. The podcast is doing well. And Matt Taven, that's all you need to know. Tune in tomorrow. Nipples, Battleground, Brock Lesnar, Sting, the whole 9 yards. We got it here, Condo on the Moon.
Oh yeah, we didn't mention Sting at all, so I guess we'll save that for tomorrow.
We got to leave him wanting more, James.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like this was the biggest story of the day. You didn't even know about it until I told you before we came on the air here.
Well,
you're like, what happened with Sting? What? He's
a guy in his mid-50s doesn't excite me, Chris Walter. Maybe it does to you. Maybe we should bring Kevin Nash back. Maybe we should bring Hogan back.
An
Like,
ACL match.
yeah, like we'll talk about the people over 50 that Walder would like to see back in wrestling on the podcast tomorrow. We are all out of time though, because I have NXT to be covering coming up. Even though here, did you know this before we go? In Canada right now, we can watch NXT.
It's
The
been on the
US
score for like
cannot.
forever.
Yes, but it's on right now, like 8 to 9. In the States, it's 9 to 10. We get it an hour early. A
Where?
taped show an hour early. On the score, of course.
Oh, it's on. I didn't know it was
Well,
on
Sportsnet
Thursdays.
360, not anymore.
Yeah, the new
The
name.
score
Yeah.
does not exist.
Shout out to Renee Young, former worker there.
Okay, if you want to. No, I'm not doing that. But
We
go
all
ahead.
love Renee Young. What? Renee Young? She came from. She's Canadian. She came from the score, and now she's doing
True,
big
I met
things.
her.
And by big things, I mean Dean Ambrose.
Wow. Okay, we're closing down before Walter gets us arrested.
Love you,
It
Renee.
may have already happened, but we'll hope not enough people watch this, so it will happen. But hey, that's it. That's our show. Nipples, Dean Ambrose, all that. But seriously, our podcast Friday, it'll be as good as this, maybe better. We'll try. Take care,
Your
everybody.
confidence is inspiring. So
Take
long,
care,
everybody.
everybody.